Good afternoon. You know, it's probably unpopular, but I'm going to take a little bit of a hit at Bob. I don't know that it's a little sister, because I think I'm significantly younger than Bob, so maybe more like an Uncle Bob. But it is great to be back in Iowa with each of you. And one thing I definitely agree on is that you have one of the best governors in the country. I absolutely love Kim Reynolds, and she has been a rock star, not just in Iowa, but across the country. She is a great friend, a great mentor, and most importantly, she is a truly great person. And I am proud of the work that she has done, not just for your state, but how she's led for the entire country. It's also great to be back here with my good friend, Bob Vanderplatz. As he mentioned, Bob and I have known each other for quite a while, and he's always been somebody willing to fight the good fight, and I'm proud that I get to be here with him today. Iowa will always hold a very special place in my heart. Some of you probably know my dad had some pretty great moments in victory here. But what you may not know is that I actually met my husband here in Des Moines back in 2008 when I was working for my dad. We like to joke in our family that he didn't win the campaign, but he got a son-in-law and 3 grandkids out of the deal, so pretty decent trade. And Bob was my dad's campaign chair during that time and helped us win here in Iowa. I'm not sure that my husband and I would have ever crossed paths, or that I would be governor today, or frankly that my dad would be President Donald Trump's ambassador to Israel, if not for that amazing campaign that started right here in Iowa. I also want to say thank you to the Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America. They do such an amazing job across the country. Not for their help with this summit is not what I want to thank them for, although we're appreciative of that. I want to thank them for the work that they do each and every day, fighting for life, something that has become more and more important, and something that has gotten harder and harder, and they have never blinked once in standing up for what is right and fighting for the unborn. So thank you for your leadership. I'm honored to be here with you today as well. As I look out in the crowd, I see a few friendly and familiar faces from my time in Iowa, and it's great to be back among friends. But most of you probably don't know me from my days in Iowa, but more likely from my time as President Trump's White House press secretary, a job I truly loved and was honored to have the opportunity to have. When the president hired me, I was only the 3rd woman and the very first mom to ever serve in that role. I soon discovered that being a mom was actually the greatest preparation I could ever have for being the White House press secretary. You see, when I started at the White House, my kids were 5, 3, and 1. Why don't you let that sink in for just a minute? 5, 3, and 1. The reason it was such great preparation is I needed a tremendous amount of patience. I had to say no a lot, and I had to answer the same question over and over and over again. When I started working for the president, we had already kind of mastered chaos at our house. In fact, I think I was the only person that went to the White House to get a break, because it was actually easier than being at home trying to help raise our 3 kids. But I loved working for President Trump. I admit there were some really tough moments. I endured relentless attacks from the left. I was cruelly insulted on a stage as the guest at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. My family was denied service and actually kicked out of a restaurant. A parent at my son's preschool actually spit on our car as I was escorting my son into his classroom. And through it all, it was President Trump who defended me and stood up for me. When an author and MSNBC host that was supposed to be all about empowering women said I was unfit to be a mother, and another said I was vile, not even human, and I should be choked. MSNBC did nothing, but the president did. He was the one who pulled me aside, looked me straight in the eye, and said, "Sarah, you're smart, you're beautiful, you're tough, and the only reason they come after you is because you're good at your job." That's the Donald Trump I know, and that I will always respect. Unfortunately, the left doesn't care about empowering women. In fact, they'll have a hard time even telling you what a woman is. The only thing the left cares about is empowering themselves. We're a party and a people who believe in empowering every American, and that we have a country that is worth fighting for. It's in large part thanks to my start here in Iowa and to President Trump that I'm standing in front of you today as the youngest governor in the country. And being a governor is an incredible privilege. I absolutely love my job. But the best job, the best title that I've ever had, and the one I'm most proud of, is the fact that I am a mom. Although being a mom comes with its own special set of challenges. Just a few months ago, I was getting introduced at an event, and the person introducing me noted that I was the youngest governor in the country. My 10-year-old son, George, was there with me, and he looked over and he said, "Mom, are you really still the youngest governor in the country?" And I said, "George, as a matter of fact, I am." Kind of shook his head and he said, "Well, those other guys must be really old." Like I said, being a parent comes with its own set of challenges, but also so many incredible rewards. Not long after I took office, my kids did some chalk art in our driveway. It was a beautiful cross. They spent all day working on it. And I wanted to recognize how hard they had worked and how their masterpiece turned out. So I shared a quick picture on social media of what they had drawn. And the left went absolutely insane. They even filed a lawsuit to have it removed. I simply replied, "I will not erase the beautiful cross that my kids drew on the driveway of the Arkansas governor's mansion. I will not delete my post on social media, and I will not now or ever hide that I am a Christian, and if they want to sue me, that's perfectly fine with me." You'll be happy to know we won that fight, and it's one we won't ever give up on. My faith influences everything I do. It defines me. It gives me a clear sense of right and wrong, and the courage to do what's right, not just what's convenient. And doing what's right, not what's politically correct, is why I won the fight to keep men out of women's sports and restrooms in my state. It's how we held accountable those who experiment on kids with hormones and sex change surgeries. It's doing what's right, not what's politically correct, that allowed us to ban critical race theory and indoctrination in our schools, making sure our schools are teaching our kids how to think, not what to think. It's why we implemented universal school choice and why more than 40,000 Arkansas families will be impacted by that next year. Doing what's right led us to fight to empower parents against big tech, keep explicit material out of the hands of our kids, protect our right to safeguard against some of the worst abuses of AI. It's why I repealed COVID mandates, restoring freedom to millions. It's why I appointed the very first conservative Supreme Court majority in the history of my state, defending our Constitution and our most fundamental liberties. Doing what's right, not what's easy, is why we defended religious liberty from big government and fought off the left to keep Arkansas the most pro-life state in the entire country. It's the reason I approved a welfare to work requirement and have worked to phase out our state's income tax. It's why we will continue to fight to make Arkansas elections the most free, the most fair, and the most secure in the nation. And it's why I was the very first governor in the country to kick communist China off of Arkansas farmland and out of my state and made them pay a fine for violating our law. Doing what's right is not always easy. The Democrats and the media continue to attack me every step of the way. But I know who I am, what I believe in, and what's worth fighting for. I don't need the New York Times or CNN or anybody else to define me, because I have a creator who's already done that. Three years ago, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. It was a hard time for our family, particularly our kids, but we kept our faith and we persevered. Thanks to incredibly exceptional doctors in my home state of Arkansas, a successful surgery, and the grace of God, I stand in front of you now completely cancer-free. Through that process, I couldn't help but think about my mom. She was 20 years old and in the very first year of her marriage when she was diagnosed with spinal cancer. The doctors told her that she might not live. If she lived, she would probably never walk, and she would most certainly never have children. The daughter that she was told she couldn't have is standing in front of you this afternoon. Adversity and fear of the unknown can paralyze us, but our faith, if real, can help us charge boldly ahead. In the White House and as governor, I've learned that humility, inspired by faith, is one of the most important qualities that we can have both in life and in leadership. I love to tell stories about my kids, and much like my son George keeping me humble, I'm now the mom to a 13-year-old daughter. Teenagers are tough. If we make it through, it could be a miracle. But when Scarlett was a little bit younger, she was getting ready for her first ever father-daughter dance. And this was a big deal at our house. Scarlett didn't just want to go to the dance. She wanted this perfect night, and it was my job to execute it flawlessly. She gave me very strict instructions. And she didn't just want to walk off, she wanted the big reveal, to come down the stairs and her Prince Charming, my husband Brian, to be waiting for her with a very specific flower in his hand when she got to the bottom. So I'm sitting at the top of the stairs with my daughter Scarlett, helping put the finishing touches on before she's whisked away by her Prince Charming. And as I'm talking with Scarlett, I'm telling her how proud we are of her, how thankful I am that God chose us to be her parents. And as I was having this powerful mother-daughter moment with Scarlett, I started to tear up. And my sweet daughter reached up, patted me on the arm, and said, "It's okay, Mommy. One day, you can be pretty too." My kids certainly keep me humble. And that's a good thing. Because the opposite of humility is pride. C.S. Lewis, one of the greatest writers ever, describes pride as the great sin, the complete anti-God state of mind. In the book Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis writes, "As long as you are proud, you cannot know God, because a proud man is always looking down on things. And people, of course, as long as you are looking down, you cannot see something that is above you." It's humility, rooted in an absolute dependence on our Creator, that makes a good leader. And I'm lucky enough that I've had examples in my life of truly great leaders. My dad, now serving as President Trump's ambassador to Israel, has spent the better part of the last month working from a bunker as Iranian missiles rain down on the country. An example of true humility and leadership is the life that he has lived. In the midst of that firestorm, he took time to send a text to President Trump. I'm going to read it to you now. He said, "Mr. President, God spared you in Butler, Pennsylvania, to be the most consequential president in the century, maybe ever. The decisions on your shoulders I would not want to be made by anyone else. You have many voices speaking to you, sir, but there is only one voice that matters, his voice. I am your appointed servant in this land, and I am available for you, but I do not try to get in your presence often, because I trust your instincts. No president in my lifetime has been in a position like yours, not since Truman in 1945. I don't reach out to persuade you, only to encourage you. I believe you will hear from a heaven, a voice that is far more important than mine or anyone else's. You sent me to Israel to be your eyes, your ears, and voice, and to make sure our flag flies above our embassy. My job is to be the last one to leave. I will not abandon this post, and our flag will never come down. You did not seek this moment, but this moment sought you. It is an honor to serve you." Signed, Mike Huckabee. My dad personifies humble servant leadership, and exactly what God calls on each of us to exhibit every single day, no matter our calling. Many years ago, an 11-year-old girl and her family traveled to the same place that my parents now call home. Her parents had been going there for decades, but it was this girl's first trip. The family planned to visit the historical and biblical sites that served as the basis for much of their Christian faith. One of the last stops on their trip was Yad Vashem, which commemorates one of the darkest eras in all of human history, the Nazi genocide against the Jewish people. The 11-year-old girl's parents weren't sure if she was ready to walk through that place, but they wanted her to understand the importance of standing up against evil. And they didn't know if they would get the chance to ever bring her back there again. So they decided that they would take her and her dad would walk through the museum with her. And that if at any point it became too much, he would simply escort her out. As many of you probably know, Yad Vashem sits on Mount Herzl, often referred to as the Mount of Remembrance. Yad Vashem in Hebrew means a memorial and a name. And its goal is to memorialize the Holocaust, and in particular, all of the Jewish people who were killed and had no descendants left to carry on their names. As the father and the daughter walked through Yad Vashem, the girl watched the videos of the Jewish families being marched to their deaths in gas chambers. She saw an exhibit of hundreds of pairs of shoes that had been taken right off of the feet of Jewish children and stacked dozens of feet tall, children that were her age and even younger. She listened as the names of the 1.5 million Jewish children murdered by the Nazis were read off one by one after another, and was told that it takes 3 months to get through the entire list and to read off each name. The 11-year-old girl walked through, taking in each of those exhibits, not once speaking, not saying a word. At one point, though, she did reach up and grab a hold of her father's hand and continued to grip it tighter and tighter as they walked through each of those sites and halls. Her father never left her side, but instead of watching the exhibits, all the while he was watching his daughter, looking over her shoulder, wondering if she understood why he had brought her here, also wondering if it was too much for her to take in, too much for her to handle at such a young age. They got to the end of the museum, and the dad, still watching his daughter, wondered if she understood all that she had just seen, if she knew why he wanted her to be there. As they got to the end, they came up to a podium much like the one I'm standing behind tonight, where a guest book was laid out. The little girl reached into her father's pocket and pulled a pen that she knew he always kept right there. He looked over her shoulder as she scribbled down her name and her address and paused in the section that was dedicated for comments. He looked down to see if she would write or indicate anything that helped him know whether or not she understood. And in that moment, she wrote down words that neither he nor she will ever forget. Very simply, why didn't somebody do something? Tears welled in the father's eyes. And in that moment, he knew that his daughter got it. He knew that she understood that when good people do nothing, evil can take over. And that all it takes for evil to win is for good people to sit by. The reason I know this story so well and the impact that it had is because I was that girl and it was my dad who walked me through that museum. You have to see, the world remains a dangerous place. But America now has a president and allies in his movement across our country doing something about it, taking the fight to the forces of darkness, frankly, that threaten us all. America is the greatest country that the world has ever known, because we're the freest country that the world has ever known. But we have to do our part to protect that freedom, to preserve that freedom, and make sure that we have the ability to pass that freedom on to the next generation. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for standing with us in that fight. I hope that when we leave here today, we don't just say, what a great bunch of speeches, what a nice event that this was, but that we leave committed to be the somebodies who do something. No father should ever look over his daughter's shoulder, standing in a museum, depicting the stories of a once great America, and wonder, why didn't somebody do something? With God as our guide and President Trump back in the White House, we will show the world that America is the place where freedom reigns and where liberty will never die. Thank you for allowing me to be here and share with you, and let's go be the somebodies who do something. Thank you, and God bless you.